Hey guys, this is GoldenWheels. I've put together a video about my retro gaming setup here. I've been working on it for about a year since we moved into our new home. My goal was to acquire all the systems from my youth that I either had or always wanted to have. This is all built into a space underneath the stairs leading into our basement. Almost any prefab house with stairs with a 90-degree turn or without a 90-degree turn have a similar space underneath. A lot of families will just use them for storage. It's kind of an odd-shaped space to make any real use of. The doors are made of lexan, very durable plastic sheet material which can be cut with a circular saw. You can wail on this stuff with a hammer pretty much all day before it'll crack. Once it does, it's real sharp edge. It's like glass, but it's very, very durable. I have two young boys. I needed to make sure that if anybody took a tumble or a fall in front of the cabinet, that they weren't putting their arm through a big piece of plate glass. And of course, working with glass is hard. Working with plastic, not so hard since you can use the saw. These doors also lock to keep my kids out, period, by use of a window sash lock that I installed at the top of the doors. This way I've got everything in one place, everything central, and everything right where I need it. Let's open up the door and take a look inside. Okay, here we've got a side view of the cabinet with the doors open. You can kind of see a little different perspective of it. On the side of the rack here, maybe you can tell from the reflection or you can tell from the leading edge at the front, I used an extra piece of lexan to shield that in. Then I mounted my DirecTV box, as you can see, right to the side. Everything runs right around the side of the cabinet into the back of that. Got my Epiphone Jr. back there from Rocksmith, which is a wonderful game in my opinion for learning how to play the guitar. Even though I'm terrible, I have a ton of fun playing it. This was just to give you another view, show you what it looks like when the doors are open. You can see a little cleat and a foot down there. The doors were real wobbly before I put that in down at the bottom. This way they've got contact at the top and the bottom, and they've got magnet catches. So you close the door, there's just enough weight, it will close all the way, hit the latch, and everything's latched up nice and tight. Alright, now I'll take you and get you a closer look at the front of the rack here. Alright, here I'm just going to go through each individual item that I've got on the rack here. This is a Pioneer 1022K. Pioneer is not making this anymore. It's a deleted item. They probably have a next one up that hasn't changed much. It's about the same price range. This was retailing for $249.99, $239.99, depending on where you got it. It's not a fancy receiver. There aren't a ton of bells and whistles, but for the price it offers a couple nice features, one of which is 7 channels. The other is HDMI up conversion. Now I don't use the up conversion for a lot of these systems, but some of them I have, some of them I can, and it comes in handy for other things that I might want to do. You're not going to find a lot of other receivers anywhere near that price point that have 7 channels or do the up conversion, and that was why I went with this one. Previously I had an Onkyo, which I loved, but typical to a lot of Onkyos, apparently from other owners, it fried its HDMI board and let out a little poof of smoke and never did anything again. Too bad. But still, this is a nice AVR and it serves me pretty well. Got a PlayStation 3 fat, so it gives me the old PlayStation 2 functionality. I've got the Wii, that's the older model, so it's got GameCube functionality. Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64 obviously, Turbo-Grafx 16. This was a big one for me when I was a kid. I always had Nintendo, never had Sega. A lot of the time in the 90s, a lot of kids will remember you had to be lucky you picked one or the other. You were real lucky you had both. I didn't know many people who had a Turbo-Grafx. I was very happy to finally get one of these. Don't have a turbo booster. Someday I'd love to replace it with something real fancy like a Turbo Duo. But right now I really love just having one. I never had one before, so it's nice to have it in the system. It is running on an RF signal, and I've got a VCR hidden up top to convert that signal over for the composite switch. This is a Generation Nex. It's one of the Famicom and NES clone rip-off things. I like this the best out of most of them, whether it's the Retron or the FC Twin, whatever one you've got. Just because the little touches mostly, they actually tried to make it look like a Nintendo. It uses the black and kind of gray color scheme. It looks like it's maybe been squashed. But you can see it's got a Famicom cart port right on top. NES goes right in the front. This is nice. There's no elevator mechanism like most of the newer rip-off ones. You pop it in, it's right in the pin connector. It's a nice tight connection. It also has stereo outs. It is you know, whatever you want to call it, NES on a chip. It's emulation, so it can do the old standbys that most of them can't do. They falter on, whether it's Castlevania 3. I think there's a couple other games that they're not able to play. But I have a real Nintendo hooked up upstairs on my other TV. My son and I will put some time in on it. But for here, I wanted to be able to play the Famicom games, so I have the clone put in. They're an easy swap if I want to move them out. Here I've got an Atari XE. The funny thing is about this, I had one of these when I was a kid, when everybody else had a NES, and I was totally embarrassed to have one. I mean, who would want one of these things compared to a Nintendo? Then when I was finally putting all this together, I said, oh man, I gotta get an Atari XE. So I tracked one down, you know, I have Joust and a couple other games. It's quite a funny little system with its Easter egg colored pastel type buttons and its diagonal cartridge slot and everything else going on, but I had to have one. That's a big nostalgia one, as is this one, the 7800. And of course the 7800, if you know anything about Atari, that'll play 2600 games too, so I'm well set there. Here I've got the Master System Model 1, I believe this is. You know, I kind of like this. The Master System Model 2 is a neater little unit, and it kind of is more high-tech, but I kind of like this thing. Looks like an old VCR with the, you know, weird logos on the front and the different colors, and you know, the Segas were ones I never had as a kid, so they're kind of nice for me to have. I don't know a heck of a lot about them, but I have them, I play them, you know, they're fun. And I have a Genesis Model 2 here. Now up here, all the older systems run into this AV composite switch here, which I've undermounted under the cabinet, so that sits right there underneath that top shelf. There's no master key for anybody to know. I know what the buttons do. I know what each one represents, what system it is. Everything except for the PlayStation 3 and the Wii run through this switch. So when I have the Pioneer on the proper input and the TV on the right input, all the retro systems are basically one button push away on this thing. I haven't noticed any signal degradation. It seems pretty good to me. It's a non-powered switch. It doesn't plug in. You know, it's purely mechanical, but it seems to have done the job, and for something out of some province in China for $25 on eBay, I've been pretty happy with what it's done for me. Alright, this is the remote for the lighting, the LED lights that I installed in the cabinet. I picked this up off of Amazon, the entire set, and I really wasn't expecting much. I think the entire set was about 17 feet of LEDs on a ribbon with the remote, the power transformer, the lead for your remote, and everything else that you need for about 30 bucks. And I was expecting junk. Now, I don't know a lot about LEDs, but this turned out to be pretty good in my opinion. They give you this remote, and as you can see, you've got a lot of different colors and different functions on here, things you can do. I don't do a lot with most of them, you know, sometimes I'll change the colors. It can be a little neat to show off. I stick to white most of the time, but you know, you can do blue, green, red, the you know, the really primary colors, the bright hues tend to stand out better. Purple, some of the other ones they do okay. Yellow and light blue, you know, you're going to be hard pressed to tell them from even a white shade. You know, the LEDs can only do so much, but it can do crazy things too. You know, it can flash. It's got fade modes, do different things where it'll gently, you know, coast between colors here. Again, I don't do a lot of this, but the LED had the functionality, and it is kind of fun to show off. Most of the time though, you know, for games, bright white lets me see everything, get in there, especially if I'm doing work in the back of the cabin. I use the bright white, and then when I'm doing a movie, you know, or something else, you can gently turn them down so that it's just a real low ambient light, and that way you're not blinding yourself while you're trying to, you know, focus on your movie. Now on the left hand side here, you see where I built my storage in. These are just cheap melamine shelves, probably 15-20 bucks a unit at your, you know, from your local Target or Walmart, Kmart, what have you. You know, they come in various different trims, oak trim, black, white for the most part. The nice thing about these was that being melamine, you know, very easy to take a circular saw to them. They're not the strongest thing in the world, but they don't have to hold up bricks. They're just holding up video games. One tip, if you do decide to do anything with something like this and you decide to cut it up, get one of those particulate masks from your hardware store. I can stand sawdust or secondhand smoke, a lot of things like that won't bother me. This stuff, when you saw it, puts off this really fine dust, and it's got, you know, glue and Chinese chemicals and what have you in it, so not something you really want to be breathing in. But they let me, you know, cut it to the height of the cabinet and slide everything in, and I got very lucky. I didn't have to cut anything for width. I've, you know, basically just two units forming a right angle, and it fit the gap there perfectly. And you can see I've got my NES games set up here. Thought I had a good collection until I put everything in these big shelves, and it doesn't look like so much then. Now with all the games, at least the ones where I've got real long-term storage set in, where I know what's going where, I have a backer piece here. So none of the games can get pushed back. You know, I don't like to see things 2 inches from the back of the, you know, the front, not faced properly. It just drives me crazy. So that way everything is sitting right up front. You know, for the different games, I've got ones where I kind of hedge my bets. I've got some Famicom carts down here, hack carts, my Super Nintendo games, just a few of them, a little bit of Turbo-Grafx stuff, Master System games, a few 2600 and Atari 8-bit games for the XE. Okay, little 7800 collection. I was able to pick up a good lot there. Genesis games, N64 games. You know, as I said, when this was all in one big drawer in the living room, wow, it really looked like a lot. And then when you organize it and do it like this, it didn't look so great. But I have plenty of room for expansion. I'm never going to be as brave as some of these guys that try to own all 800 or whatever it is NES games. And I want stuff that I actually want to play anyway. You know, having Sesame Street or Hogan's Alley, stuff like that's really not going to do me any good. It might look good on the shelf. If I get in a lot, I'll keep it. But I have plenty of space, so I'm trying to get things that I'll actually play. Now on the other side, I've got some newer games again, all fronted with the backer bar, so they can't go back to their PlayStation 3 and the most of the good retro compilations. The Rocksmith, you know, and down here, extra remotes, gear, everything right inside the left-hand door. So if I need something quickly, I can reach in and grab it. Various different types of remotes, arcade sticks, you know, there's a lot of systems here. Extension cords, stuff like that for other people playing on the couch when you need to get them some reach, some plug and plays, and some other stuff, books and stuff for my guitar. Reference books, system lists, basically stuff like that. I've got some more storage here in the back, and I'll show you the back of the cabinet. Up here, this is real long-term stuff because it's a hassle to get to. So, you know, silly stuff, Yoshi stuffed animal, Game Fleet box, GameCube, and some extra speaker wire, my lone VCR tape, Army of Darkness, lonely up there by itself. You know, so long-term stuff that I don't want to get rid of, but I don't need very often. That stuff's going to go up there. And right here, you can see the VCR hiding on the top level of the rack. All the RF stuff just runs up the side into this. I power it up when I want to play those two systems, and it converts the signal for me. I know there's a composite mod for the 7800, and obviously getting a Duo or a Turbo Booster or even the CD attachment for the Turbo-Grafx would allow me to do the composite. I just haven't gotten that far yet. Now up here, this is my port for all my speaker wires. That's the surround channels and the back channels for the 7-channel surround sound. And I cut a big port, and I realized it was a little big. People coming down the stairs were shaking down sheetrock dust from inside the wall. So I took a furnace filter and just tacked it to the wall and built some trim, you know, try to get that hole a little smaller. And I think I solved most of the problem. Sheetrock dust is nasty stuff, and certainly not stuff I want coming down inside my electronics, especially old stuff. And you can see I did most of my routing here. Anything I did really with zip ties. I could have used Velcro. There's pluses and minuses to both. With the zip ties, the nice thing was that here there are small holes. It's very hard to see them. There's one, you can see them. On the top of each shelf, they drill through so you can mount hardware and separator shelves and stuff like that if you use these in a warehouse. The zip ties fit right through there and let me route all my cables and mount things right to the back of the shelf. So you get a nice clean look from the front. There's not a lot of extra wires jangling around. There's not a lot of things going on. Now you can see the power center for all this. I had 2 power strips. The Monster one I already had. I can't recall if I got it as a gift or if I got a gift certificate to Best Buy and this was the only one they had, but I don't really care about the brand name. I get most of my stuff from Monoprice, but it seemed to be a good one, so I run all my new stuff into there for simplicity's sake. I know, you know, where the plugs are going. Anything made in like the last 15 years is going into that top one there. Then you've got a Monoprice 12 plug guy on the bottom here, which is nice because it accommodates all the larger boxes from, you know, whether it's a 7800 or some of these older ones, you know, the bricks that weigh 50 pounds. They plug right in. Those are all nicely mounted to the wall, so they're not going anywhere. I let my cords dangle. You know, I could route or wrap these. I'm not a big fan of that with power. I don't want to, you know, cause heat buildup or anything else like that. They're safe, they're good. They're not hurting anything, so I'm letting them be back there. And this is all plugged into one dedicated circuit on my circuit board, heavy duty circuit, just for this cabinet. Nothing else is on that load. So I've got, you know, plenty of protection between that protector and these two here, and plenty of power. You know, it's never going to trip. We got newer wiring and stuff. It's never going to trip because the washing machine or you know, some high draw voltage thing kicks on. So everything's pretty well protected. Also, my satellite TV runs in here. You know, we take it right in through the converter and right in the back of the box here. And you know, I wanted to side mount that because I thought it was cool. I was also out of space in the rack. I wanted to make sure for the top loading systems, you know, that I had plenty of space to actually put games in. Now here, I had some extra lexan. And again, stuff's expensive, so I wanted to use all of it. And it's this odd space with the slope ceiling. It's hard to tell, but I'll open the door here in a second. This is actually a door on push magnets. You know, kind of like you'd find on a cheap entertainment center. And here you can see how the roof is, the inside of this cabinet is sloped here. Yeah, so I could have run shelves all the way up to the top, but I wouldn't have been able to push the games back. It wouldn't have done me any good. So I cut the extra lexan, put some magnets on it, got some decals from eBay, Nintendo, Coleco, Sega, Atari. You'll notice I don't even have a Coleco in this, but I'm from Connecticut, so got a rep Connecticut Leather Company. So that was a nice little way to use the space. I don't put anything back there because I think it looks cooler, empty, you know, with nothing behind it. All right, well, that's pretty much it. I want to show you real quick what I'm playing this on. I've got a 60-inch Sony Wega LCD rear projection combination TV. It's an older one, but it's a good one. Even at a 4:3 aspect ratio, the screen comes out to about 45 inches. They didn't really make tubes bigger than 42 or commonly 40 inches. You'll find 35 and 36s sometimes. You know, so I considered getting a CRT TV for this setup. I could have one in the other room. The switch has dual output, my composite switch, so I could run it in there and play it, I suppose, if I wanted to. I respect the people that get the CRT monitor for this. You're really going the full mile. For me, in a lot of reasons, it didn't make a lot of sense. First one being I don't play light gun games. I didn't play light gun games when they were new. You couldn't pay me to play Hogan's Alley or Duck Hunt, you know, your various games, whether it's for the Master System or whatever one has a light gun. I'm not going to play Barnyard Blaster for the Atari XE. They just weren't fun games for me, so that's a non-factor. The second issue that some people can have with newer TVs is your control input response is delayed. You know, you get lag. I haven't experienced any lag with my setup that's discernible to me. I could be, you know, correcting it if it's real minute. Hard to tell without doing a side-by-side, but I don't detect anything. Now, the third one is graphical issues. And I can't deny that there are some things when it comes to parallax scrolling or certain games on the NES, it seems in particular, that they don't show up as good on this monitor as they would on a CRT TV. That's a trade-off unfortunately, I've got to make. I may change that in the future, but for now I'm really happy playing them. The NES, in fact the 8-bit systems in general seem more affected by this than any of the other ones. Super Nintendo, Genesis, Turbo-Grafx 16, even through the RF. I've been very, very happy with the picture, and again, I have no complaints there. For my speakers, I've got Pokes. I don't remember the exact model, but you know, they were on sale at NewEgg at one point. Poke sides and center and subwoofer. And then I've got some older Onkyo speakers for my surrounds that I had left over from a home theater in a box system. There's the rear surrounds over my son's fort here. The right channel surround. This is the couch where you're sitting. So, you know, you're really pretty close to the cabinet. You run the cords right out there. You can even close the door. The gap in between the doors is big enough for any of the controller cables to come out without pinching. So a lot of times I just run the cables right out to there. There's the king seat right there. That reclines. Get your game on. Do your thing. And that's pretty much it. If any of you guys have any comments, anything I could do better, anything you think I should add, let me know. Thanks for watching. Later.